Hi, friends. Jeff here. Thanks for joining us for today's STLP Quick Shot, where we take a big topic and boil it down to just the basics and make sure you know where all the resources are. Today, we're going to focus in on the STLP Project Toolkit, with our big three events, projects, and we have the Creative Digital Arts competitions, and then we had the live challenges at state. Among those, projects are really the one area, competition area with STLP, which is a sort of year-round event, something that you could be working on from the start of the school year all the way up until the state championship at the end of April, and then beyond, especially if you're one of our state champions that moves on to represent us at ISTE. So there's a lot of resources available to you, just like everything in STLP. We put it into as many bite-sized chunks as we possibly can, give you as many pro tips as possible. You're going to start right here, as always, by going to stlp.education.ky.gov, which will bring up the main STLP website. And then I'm going to encourage you to zoom in here and take you up here to our menu across the top, news, dates, get started. Since we're talking about projects, click on that project link, which will take you to the project page. Here, you're going to get an overview. If you're brand new to the STLP project cycle, this is the right place to start. There's a lot of information that you're going to be able to get your hands on. But to wrap your brain around what is that project cycle all about, this is where you want to start. First of all, of course, right across the top, we've got a nice little reminder of registration coming. But here's a little visual to take you through the concept of we're going to be moving from level I, which is a district level, all the way through level 1, 2, 3, and 4 up to the state championship. This is also a wonderful spot that you could share with students, parents, other teachers that will take you through why the project cycle is important, why it's helpful in the classroom. Even if you don't compete in any of the STLP competitions, use these resources as a great launching point for number one. If you are interested in project-based learning, we know that that is a huge commitment to really follow the gold standard, so to speak, project-based learning school-wide. If you are interested in using PBL concepts, STLP is a great place to start to make that decision on whether you want to take the plunge into full-blown project-based learning as part of your curriculum. But also, it's going to help you connect and make you understand that we fundamentally tie everything with STLP into the Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology. We also tie them into the Academic Standards for Library Media, as well as the Kentucky Academic Standards for Computer Science. But we'll focus with the project cycle. We'll do a really deep focus on these areas of the Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology. And then also, here's some information for you that is really helpful, is the 2025 resources. These are the things that are going to get you moving, and these are timely. So what we have listed here are the things for the next round of the project cycle. So right now we're in level I, but when you're getting ready to move into level 1, you're going to want to take advantage of coming here to the toolkit page and make sure that you open up a copy of the toolkit, but also get in here to the level 1 info page, which is going to take you through some of the details for that level 1 process that we'll talk about in a second. And of course, get your team registered. But let's jump in. Here's that page. And then we're going to jump all the way back into the full project toolkit, which you'll see is available to you online. It's built as a Google slide deck, so you can use it as presentation mode. You can download a copy for yourself and use in different ways. Let's dive into it and spend the majority of our time in here doing that. I'm going to make sure that I click on, okay, I've got my timer started, because we want to do this in as short a time as possible, because we know how busy you are, and we just want to get you the overview of what this project toolkit. When you're ready to dive in and really dig into the details, the toolkit's going to mean everything to you, because there's going to be a lot of information that you can read through if you choose to. This first page in the toolkit is very similar to the STLP project webpage. That beginning page where I was first brought you to, a lot of the same information here. So you'll see that this is some explanations on why projects are important and why it's worth your time. And here is the project timeline. Don't want you to spend a ton of time on this just yet. We'll circle back to this. This is a lot of detail, and don't want you to get overwhelmed with all the detail. But once you start diving into it, this will be a valuable resource to understand where you should be along the timeline throughout the year. And again, we'll focus in on how those academic standards for technology really play out. I'm telling you, when your students are done competing in STLP projects, or if they use the project cycle resources throughout the year, you're going to walk away with students who can, by name, identify and discuss how they have utilized a set of academic standards for their own learning, which is an amazing thing that I guarantee you're not going to see that with any other content standard out there. But these technology standards are so ingrained in student demonstrations of knowledge, and you probably also will notice these if you are a district that has a portrait of a learner, portrait of a graduate, something along those lines. A lot of those areas we see out in the districts seem to mirror these academic standards for technology, which we've developed over the years as part of STLP into the technology academic standards for Kentucky. And now we're seeing them fit into these district graduate profiles. And I think it's a great overlay. And imagine the other thing I'll tie on to this real quick, and not to go too deep, is every district is looking to figure out how do we meet this minimum graduation requirement that's a state minimum graduation requirement. You'll notice that there is a minimum graduation requirement for students that they have to be able to demonstrate technology proficiency, but there's no explanation of what that means. So my argument is, hey, listen, if you can take students through the project cycle for a year, they are many times over demonstrating technology proficiency just by participating in this. And as you see what I'm talking about here in a minute, how those content standards play a role, it's fantastic. There should be no question. Let's take you through this process right here. The level I through level 4, we're calling the 5 Ps of STLP projects. Right now, you're in level I. It's your start of the school year. You're back in the district. This is what happens at that level I. The I stands for investigation, inspiration, iteration, implementation. This is just the beginning of the project cycle. This is where students are pitching ideas and getting excited about what they could focus their project in on. Now, that level I stuff, we'll dig into it in just a second, but know that while it's kicking off at the start of the year, it's vital that your students don't skip level I, because this is an opportunity for them to get that first chance to share their project idea and to pitch their ideas to other folks, whether it's peers in the classroom, adults in the school, or maybe even have some partners that come in and listen to the pitches. We've seen classroom-wide pitch fests. We've seen school-wide. We've even seen some major awesome moves with folks doing district-wide. We call them sort of pitch fests because they bring everyone together and pitch their ideas. And why do they do that? We'll get to that in a second. Level 1, we call that the progress level. This is going to be a virtual presentation to judges using Google Meet. And you'll have some guiding questions that the students will go through all online. They can share their answers to those guiding questions, whether they use a Google slide deck in the background, whether they are filming a video, whether they're doing a song and dance, interpretive dance for the judges, whatever they want to do to address these 7 guiding questions that we'll look at in a second, with the hopes of moving on to level 2, which is the present stage. This is where you are finally in person at Central Bank Center in Rupp Arena, April 23rd, 2025. And the level 2 presentation happens in the morning at State. And this is where they're actually face-to-face with judges and talking about what their project has accomplished up to that point, with the goal of moving on to level 3, which happens in the afternoon that same day at the STLP State Championship. And in the afternoon, it is all about promoting your project idea, promoting what you're doing, and convincing judges why your project is so awesome that your project should be named as the STLP State Champion. And if you are named an STLP State Champion, you move on to that level 4, where you represent us at an international conference for technology. We'll talk about that at the end. Let's focus in on this level I. You're going to see you got a lot of resources here. We're going to take you through how to do level I, but we want to always really focus in on the fact that doing what fits best for your school is what we want you to do. So we're not going to give you a prescription of here's exactly level I, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. We're going to give you some suggestions on things that we have seen be very successful items at other districts and other schools. But you'll see from this page here, really level I is about just getting your students focused in on and prepared to present at level 1. And we provide you with resources that will help make this make sense to students. Why is it level I? Investigation, inspiration, iteration. And you'll see on the right here that we have all sorts of resources that you can link out to, whether it is some overviews of project-based learning, whether it is some design thinking process work that you can jump in on, whether there's some collaboration tools that you can experience, whether you want to look back at some of last year's champs to get some ideas of what some of their titles were, all the way into some the real world challenge builder that Beechwood Independent has shared with us a few years ago, which is a tremendous tool, all the way down into this next thing that I want to talk about, which is the implementation statement. We know that level I is about students brainstorming, getting all their ideas together. The implementation statement, as you see here, is going to help them glue it together into something cohesive, talking about what their project is, why they picked it, and really what importantly, most importantly, is perhaps not most, but very importantly, is what technology they're going to use. We see a lot of teams forget to highlight the technology in their presentations. Remember, that's the T in STLP. Moving on to level 1, and level I, you're going to be able to take advantage of this piece. This is the project planner. This is a downloadable document that you can hand out to students. You can share with students digitally where they can start thinking about, this is going to ask some of the guiding questions for each of the areas of that level 1 project. And it's super helpful at level I because it helps getting them thinking about how are they going to address these areas? And here are the 7 areas that every project needs to touch upon. It can certainly go beyond these 7 areas, but the project planner is going to also really help them move from that implementation statement and bridge the gap between level I and level 1. So each school has a number of projects. 4 is the basic number. There are some exceptions where you could have 5 if you're a gold status school, 6 if you're a previous champion, or a platinum district. That's a whole other conversation to have. But knowing that you're moving into level 1 and you've registered your folks, now it's time to get them ready to actually give their presentations. Again, that planning guide, that document is available as a level I or level 1. It is a great way to move on and bridge that gap, as we say, and have them see some growth. But what are they shooting for? Here on this page in the project toolkit, you see the actual rubric that judges will use. Okay, there's no secrets here. The students can see this from day 1 and know here's exactly what judges are looking for. And these guiding questions are, again, right inside here. They're going to get 1 through 5 scores for answering how they are empowered learners, how they are implementing digital citizenship skills, what technology tools they're learning as knowledge constructors, all the way down to did you include somewhere in your presentation through the Google Meet the STLP logo prominently. You get simple 5 points for that. So take advantage, look at the rubric. It's all here. There's even a downloadable Google Doc version if you want to print some of these out and do test runs, right? If you want to create an online form, something that you could use and do some peer judging in advance to level 1 before you get on with us in November. Now remember, you register. This is all online. This is all virtual over Google Meet. The judges will be remote all across the state. Your team will get a time and a window to jump into the link to the Google Meet. The judges will be waiting for them, and they'll be able to start their presentation and give their progress. Now remember, that's what level 1's about. It's not about a completed project by any stretch of the imagination. Come November, they should just be sharing with judges what progress they've made and what plans they have to move forward. Now, moving forward is moving on to level 2. And you find out if you move on to level 2 by getting your feedback scores, which here you get your scores and you actually get some feedback from the judges about how they have done, whether it is what the judges felt they were super excited about, what are some things they're anxious to learn more about, or whether there's some areas that could use some clarification. These scores will translate into 3 options, whether your project is on track, meaning everything sounds great. Keep doing what you're doing. Work ahead, and we'll see you at level 2. Or whether you're a not yet project, and that not yet project doesn't mean it's the end of the road. You just have some things that the judges think if you address these few little areas and give us some feedback on how you're going to do that, then we'll consider moving you on to level 2 anyway. Okay, so take advantage of those not yet opportunities to share your ideas for how you're going to synthesize the feedback from judges into the next phase. And then, of course, there is a few folks who could potentially get the reboot. And the reboot means, listen, you're just not ready for level 2. You're a little too far off at this time of the year to get it together. So we're going to ask you to review our feedback, rethink it for next year, and maybe reboot this process and start a little bit earlier or get a little bit more in depth with it. But if you are on track, or if you're not yet, but then do that second chance opportunity and you do move on to level 2, then we'll see you at the STLP State Championship. It is April 23rd, 2025 at Central Bank Center in Lexington, Kentucky. We come together. Imagine level 2 is going to be your stereotypical science fair presentation with there'll be hundreds and hundreds of tables in a massive room, and each project will be assigned a specific table, and you'll have that space to build and to give a presentation. Now, how you fill that presentation space is completely up to you. We reiterate to judges, it's not how much money a school has to spend on a presentation, but it's the quality of the presentation. Again, here's the rubric. This is exactly what judges will be using. You'll see it is very similar to level 1, except we added a couple extra areas. We now have a score of 1 through 10 for your presentation. How well does it address the varying scoring categories? Were the materials displayed digitally? Again, are you taking advantage of the technology? Are you sharing your information in a digital format? Is it well organized? Okay, there's that. But there's also a question of that technology implementation. How much technology have you had to learn or put into the project? And then also the biggest thing that's different here at level 2 is now how have you measured the impact of your project? Do you have a metric? Do you have a way to say, yeah, our project was successful, or here are areas that we need to grow in? Level 2, you give your presentation. You'll have no more than about 7 or 8 minutes with the judges to give your presentation. And then you're hoping to get announced that morning that you move on to level 3. And if you move on to level 3, that's a whole other category. Now, level 3 happens the same day, but it happens in the afternoon at the state championship. And level 3 happens in a very conversational tone. This is your chance to promote your project to the judges. Okay. This is where they're going to come around and say, tell me what's so great about your project. It's not going to be time to kick off your canned presentation with everyone's practice parts, but this is where you're just going to convince the judges our project is so awesome, and here's why we believe in it. If your project gets selected as a level 3, and you'll see here's lots of different information that you can read through on who the judges are, what they're looking for, things you should consider, and what will happen next. The key part here that I want to have you think about from the very beginning is plan now with the expectation that if you make it to level 2, that you're going to make it to level 3. Not every team will, but having the expectation that you'll make it to level 3 means setting the tone even with your district and your transportation folks. Hey, we're not leaving early just because we don't make it. We need to stick around. If we make it to level 3, we have to be at the award show to find out if we're winners. And we don't just mean that sort of hypothetically. What we're saying is if your team gets named a state champion and you're not at the award show, we're going to bump you and go straight to the runner-up and give them the slot. So set that expectation now. We want you there in person for the state championship award show at the end of the day. It wraps up by 5 o'clock or 5:30 at the latest. You'll be able to get back on the road. And look at it this way. Any other state championship event that your school is represented at and is going to be named a champion or a finalist for sure, the team doesn't leave. You stick around for the basketball. You stick around for the football. You stick around for the cheering tournaments. Stick around for this too, and set that expectation from the very beginning. So after level 3, you go back to level 4. Level 4 is moving on to the presentation at the ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education Conference this year. It is in San Antonio, Texas, and STLP and the Kentucky Department of Ed provide your district with a massive stipend to pay to get your students to the event. And we want you to make sure that know that that is representing all of Kentucky, the Kentucky Department of Ed, your district and your school and yourselves on the biggest stage that we could find for you. It's a huge honor to represent Kentucky at level 4. It's not a competition at that point. It is just sharing your presentation with folks who are technology educators from around the world. It's not just the United States, but literally they come from all over the globe, and they do not invite many students to present. So this is a huge honor for us to be invited to ISTE, and we only take the best of the best, and that's why our state champions get to go. I said we come back and wrap up on the project timeline. Very briefly, know the local level happens with level I. You should be starting on that and all the way up to November 1st, because on October 31st is the deadline to register for level 1. Okay, know that when you register, the only fee, so to speak, the only cost of admission to level 1 is providing a volunteer judge. You can get online the morning of November 20th and act as a judge remotely and listen to some project presentations that morning. You're going to need the name of that judge to submit with your registration by October 31st. So make sure you get that in there. And remember, you have up to 4. Unless you're a gold status school, then you can submit 5. And our state champions from last year, your schools can submit 6. But up to 4 projects is what you have to register with. Now, we'll move ahead, and once we get done with regionals and you get through the not yets and the do-overs, because if there are any technical difficulties on the day of level 1, we will give you a makeup chance to come back and get back in there. But moving ahead to, you're going to think you're not going to have much to do until February 28th. And by then, if you made it to level 2 and you're invited to level 2, you'll have to re-register your project and then plan on being in Lexington for level 2 and 3 in April, on April 23rd. And hopefully by then, you'll be able to start planning for a trip to San Antonio in June. Okay, that was a lot of stuff. This was high level. You can dive into the project toolkit and spend some time reading through everything that's in here. There's a lot of information, a ton of great information in there. Spend some time, but if you have questions, reach out to us at stlp@education.ky.gov, and we will get back with you as quickly as possible. Thanks so much for watching today's STLP Quick Shot. We hope it was helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.